Space. I'm your host, Sierra Hoffman. And on today's call, we have Yeadon Smith of Live Oak Capital. So, Yeadon, I'm very excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Sierra. I'm not sure. That's a pretty high pedestal that I think you just put me up on. It's going to hurt if I fall off.
Well, I'm excited because we've had a lot of interactions. I'm part of your deal room. So there's just, a lot of wisdom and knowledge that I'm excited for you to share with our listeners today. So before we get into that, I'd love to know more about your story and how you guys got into multifamily.
Oh, man. So I was born at an early age back in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Right? I have to say that now, born in the 21st century. So my background is actually not really in real estate. I started my real estate career in 2014 as a realtor with a local brokerage. I started my own brokerage, hung my own shingle out in 2017. And then my cousin and business partner, now business partner Jennings, he reached out to me at some point. For some reason, the way the story goes in my head, I was driving my, beat up lawnmower tractor, cutting the grass. I'm like, Jennings is calling. Jennings, what's up? He's like, hey, I want to start a property management company. And I want to start it with him. Like, I've been thinking about that myself. So we started a property management company because we were tired of constantly hunting the next client, constantly hunting the next transaction. I was in general brokerage as a realtor. He was in construction, building custom homes. And every time you get paid, you also got fired. And you got to go find your next client, right?
Right, that's true.
And so we looked at property management as we can have consistent recurring revenue doing consistent work over time, just build that and grow that. And then around about 2018, 19, something like that, Jennings is like, hey, you know what? Also, I've been studying this thing called apartment syndication. I was like, well, what is that? I don't know what that is. It's how, normal people like us buy apartments. I'm like, Jennings, normal people like us do not buy apartments. Our last name is Smith. We live in the town where our dads were born, right? And like guys like us do not buy apartments. He's like, no, just go take, you got to study this stuff. So I studied the material that he had. I was like, okay, I guess we buy apartments now. So my name is Yeadon, and we're looking for apartment owners because we want to make them an offer. And it sounds, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's how it started. We just started saying out loud to people in all the networking spaces where we already were that we were looking for apartment owners to talk to about making an offer. And then we continued to educate ourselves. We went to a conference. I still remember the first conference we went to. And it's like, hey man, because we studied Michael Blanc when we first got started. That's where a lot of people discover this stuff, through Michael Blanc, the deal syndication analyzer, that great spreadsheet. And that's the model we first learned. And then Jennings was like, hey, we should go to this conference. This guy named Tim Bratz, where Michael Blanc, the general partners keep 20% of the deal. With Tim Bratz, the general partners keep 80% of the deal. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Let's go. And he's like, also it's $5,000. I'm like, that sounds stupid. Why would anybody invest in a deal like that? That doesn't, no, we're not wasting $5,000 to go to a conference, plus airfare, plus food, plus hotel, to learn this. Like, nope, that model probably doesn't work. But, we invested in that conference. We invested in ourselves, and a deal that didn't work with traditional syndication, Michael Blanc's model, it worked with the Bratz model. And I'll never forget sitting there at the conference, analyzing it, creating my own spreadsheet in real time as Tim Bratz was going through how they analyze the deals. Like, holy crap, Jennings, look at this. This is a deal. This works with this model. And so we learned the Bratz model, but the real goal at that conference was meeting our loan sponsor team. The team that we built a relationship with, started at the conference, who became our loan sponsor. So we've closed, that's how we got started. We closed almost all of our deals with that same loan sponsor. And now here we are 4 years later with 1,000 door portfolio, couple hundred self-storage units, and paying it forward, teaching people what we've learned.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you created the group, My First Million in Multifamily. When I first got into multifamily, I started joining a bunch of Facebook groups, and yours, I just noticed every other day, someone was like, oh, we got a deal. We got a deal. I'm like, something's happening in this group that's different from other groups. Everyone's doing deals in this group. So what's the secret to that exactly?
So when we started the My First Million group on Facebook, we started it with the goal of, hey, we know, because I learned this from my networking days as a realtor, as a health coach, previous careers, like visibility plus credibility equals profitability. And I say that all the time on calls. But like, guys, VCP. I learned this from BNI. I did not make this up, so don't give me credit for it. Visibility plus credibility equals profitability. We think, how can we get more visible to potential investors? How can we get more visible to let people know what we're doing so we can find more deals and find more investors? That's how it got started. And it was every week we had like an education type call. We were talking about lessons we were learning, and every week we had another interview call where we would interview somebody. And we did that for a year. And now we only have the one call each week. But from that, we didn't know that the marketplace was looking for something like that. But the group just exploded. And then everybody starts asking us like, well, when are you guys going to come out with education stuff? And we're like, we never thought about it. So we hired a consultant to like help us figure this out. We developed our education course, the My First Million in Multifamily course. We started offering it. And then the next question was like, this is great. Do you guys have any mentoring or accountability? We're like, sheesh, the market just keeps asking us for what the market wants. That's how the market works. So, and that's how the deal room developed. So we didn't start our Facebook group with the goal of where we are now. We started just like, what? This is going to be our platform to find investors and to find deals. And it was work. Like every day we'd be on that group, clearing out the crypto nonsense, clearing out the spam, clearing out the junk, because like if you don't proactively filter that stuff out and clean it up, the groups just get clogged with that stuff.
Yeah.
And the value of them just drops off a cliff. So it was work, real work, to make sure that the group was not just spam and junk. So and now here we are with we have the large Facebook group with, I think, pushing 26,000 people. We have the deal room, our mentorship, our accountability program, the training program, and people doing deals, right? The deals in the large group, we post this stuff because they're coming out of the deal room. That's where the people are building the relationships, taking the action steps to move the needle forward.
Exactly. And I feel like that accountability piece is super important for a lot of these people that are trying to get into multifamily. They don't have anyone to kind of, have that accountability system. Then it's really easy to just be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes, right? So. And
4 years ago, right, when we first started doing this, we didn't know anything, right? I'm embarrassed by how backwards my original spreadsheet was that I put together for how to analyze this stuff. But we knew like single family, I knew single family because I was a realtor. Jennings understood construction because he was in construction. We didn't know what we didn't know when it came to apartments. And having somebody with experience who was farther along in the journey to be able to look over our numbers to say, yeah, this is a deal. You guys have something here. Let's go after it. Like, oh, okay. I'm sure we missed something, but these guys still say it's a deal and they're confident it's going to work out. So we borrowed confidence to take action.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really important in multifamily. When you're doing these bigger deals, you definitely want someone who's got that experience of taking a deal full cycle rather than jumping into it on your own. Now, when you look for these deals or when you originally started, you mentioned that you were looking for apartment owners. So were you trying to go direct to the owner, or did you get your first deal through a broker? I mean, what was your strategy?
So I learned this when I started in real estate, just as a general agent. The general manager of the office, the broker in charge, he said, guys, I'm going to tell you something. The people you think are going to work with you won't. And the people that you don't even know are watching will call you out of the blue, say, hey, I see you're in real estate. I want to sell my house. Can you help? The problem is you don't know who is who. You don't know who is who. And with apartments, people don't walk around with a big neon sign on their hat to say, I own apartments.
Right.
Well, you might if you're in the deal room. We don't have an apartment owner hat yet, right? But they don't have name tags saying, I want to sell my apartment. It's just a matter of letting as many people know as you can of what you're looking for. Because if I talk to enough people and say, I'm looking for someone who owns an apartment because I'd like to make them an offer, at some point, someone will say, oh, you know what? My cousin owns an apartment complex. Or, yeah, I work for this, I clean the carpets at this apartment complex. I can get you in touch with the management company and get you in touch with the owner. It's just a matter of being visible, taking off your secret agent hat and telling people what you're doing. So our first deal came from that networking group that I was a part of, BNI, Business Networking International, because I was starting to stand up during my little 60 seconds and say, looking for apartment owners. We're looking for apartments to buy, to make offers on. And a commercial contractor in that group reached out to me and said, hey, a friend of mine that has a flooring company has something under contract that they don't want to buy anymore. Would you be interested in talking? I'm like, yeah, I'm very interested in talking to him. The second, and we closed that deal, that guy, we kicked him equity instead of a finder's fee. He was happy to have equity, and we closed that deal with our loan sponsors that we met at the conference. That was 18 units turned into 19 units. The second deal that we closed also came from that same networking group. There was a commercial broker in the group at the time, and I'm talking about buying apartments, and I just, I'm calling him up one day because that's what you do when you're networking. You call people. He's like, you know what? I don't have anything right now, but I'm working on something, and I'll let you guys have first shot at it. We're brand new. We don't have a track record. We don't know what we're doing, but we had a relationship with this guy. We were visible. We were credible, even without a track record. He's like, I like Yeadon. I've known him for a year. In this other facet, he's a trustworthy guy. So if they say they're buying apartments, let's see what happens. That was a 63-unit deal in our backyard, Goose Creek, South Carolina, just the neighboring town. It was like $3.2 million. It was like 3 years ago when we closed on it. A $1.25 million raise. That was our first big boy deal where we were making phone calls for weeks trying to find people to invest in the deal. And then I'll never forget the day after Thanksgiving, I forget what year, but I remember day after Thanksgiving, Jennings and I were at a family get together when the loan broker called and said, hey guys, because of the cash flow, the loan is not going to fund as much as we thought, and you need another $200,000 to close this deal. We're like, that's it. Game over.
Oh, shoot.
This deal just died, right? That emotional pit.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are we going to do? The answer to fear is action. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. That's the only thing that can get through fear is just taking action. What's the smallest thing I can do right now? So first, we took a couple breaths. And it's like, okay, who do we know? We got to make more phone calls. Who have we talked to about investing that was even halfway slightly interested? And we found some more investors to bring another $200,000 to the table. Now, to put it in perspective, November 28th was I think the day after Thanksgiving. Closing was December 7th.
Yeah, super close.
This was we couldn't convert the third down to a goal, and we're stuck at 4th and 1. It's like, right. Great, we have to make this or we lose the ball. And we did. And now that deal, it's worth I think it appraised for $7 million. We got five and something million dollars on the refinance. We got 95% of the investor's money out, and it's stable long-term agency debt, and it's running itself almost at this point.
Awesome. And I mean, it's super hard to raise capital in that space between Thanksgiving and Christmas throughout the end of the year. I mean, that's tough. So
I was like, this deal just died. The deal just died, and I don't know what to do,
Yeah. But you made it happen.
We did the only thing we could do is pick up the phone and call the next person, talk to them about investing in real estate. And then again and again and again until we had commitments for that final $200K.
Now, you started off by going into property management. Do you still have that company, or is that you just?
We do not. We actually sold that. We sold that book of business because we realized that property management, to scale the property management company, was more work than we were prepared to do at the time. And we wanted to laser focus on the next acquisition, the next apartment deal, the next investor conversation. This is what we do full time. Syndication and the deal room education. Syndication and education. That's what we do full time.
Syndication and education. Love it. Now, for someone who's brand new, wants to become financially free, let's say within 5 years, because that seems to be the realistic timeline that I've noticed, what would be kind of the fastest path for that person to reach that goal? Because there's just so many ways. Some people say, if you do joint venture, you get a bigger piece of the pie. If you do, obviously some syndication might be good to do as well, but you don't get as much of a return because it's spread out between, 100 or so investors. So what are your thoughts on that?
That is the $1 million question. How does somebody get started with the 5-year goal? So in commercial real estate, we're talking about multifamily, right? In multifamily, or really, it doesn't have to be multifamily. It could be self-storage, it could be retail, but in commercial real estate, there are 3 pillars of a deal, right? It's like a 3-legged stool. If you're missing one of these legs, you don't have a stool, right? If you're missing one of these pillars, you don't have a deal. You got to have the deal, right? You got to have the address. You got to have the loan sponsor. You got to have the person that the bank sees as qualified to loan the money to. Commercial lending is not like residential lending. I mean, commercial lending, pretty much you have to prove you don't need the loan in order to get it. You got to have the net worth equivalent or higher than the loan, and you got to have liquidity of at least 10%. So for $1 million loan, you need $100K liquid, and you got to have a net worth of $1 million, right? So you got to have that person. And then you got to have the capital. You got if you don't have $1 million sitting in the bank, you got to find it from investors. So these are the 3 pillars of a deal, but underneath those pillars is the underwriting, the analysis. And the first step that I would say somebody needs to do is get good at underwriting, right? Get a course online, something, read books, University of YouTube, right? Like all of our education stuff, people can find online for free somewhere, right? It's just an education program has it step by step in what order to do it. But learn about underwriting, get that skill honed, and then it could be at the same time, get in the room where people are doing what you want to do. And really, getting in the room is oftentimes more important than learning, because you can learn the skill of underwriting in a vacuum. You can learn it in isolation, but you're never going to make progress in isolation. You're never going to do a deal in a vacuum. But if you get in the room and learn how Yeadon underwrites a deal, learn how Sierra underwrites a deal, learns how Tim learns. If you know 5 different ways of underwriting a deal, then that's 5 different tools that you have to figure out how to make something work. So underwriting and getting in the room. Those are the two things to get started.
Got it. Get in the deal room, right?
I'm biased, but yeah, that's why we have built out class. More education is not usually the answer, right? Being in that community that pulls you forward, that has that inexorable attraction to the goal, right? If you're around people that are doing deals, if you're around people that are talking to investors, if you're around people that are analyzing deals, around people that are talking to brokers, you don't want to be the weakest link. You want to show up. You want to put in the reps, as opposed to just clicking through some YouTube videos on your own. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll watch this 30-minute video sometime, and sometime never comes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, you did mention a couple of your deals already, their first two deals. What I'd like to do next is kind of do a deal walkthrough. So maybe it could be the deal that you mentioned or another deal, up to you, but maybe one that was particularly difficult and you had to overcome some challenges.
Oh, how about we go through our failure?
Okay.
How about that?
Let's do that.
Right? Everybody's like, oh, this is a great deal. 20% IRR, equity multiple of a zillion. I was like, let's talk about a deal that fell apart, a deal that went sideways, where we in my book, we screwed up. So this deal found by actually somebody in the deal room found it. He's done multifamily before, but never really syndicated anything and raised capital. So we connected with him to help raise capital for this deal. And the first mistake that we made was the loan. We took a bad loan on the property. It was a bridge debt. It was with a new lender we hadn't worked with before. And we missed some of the points on the term sheet and the commitment letter. So it was an adjustable rate an adjustable rate loan. Guess what happened in the past 2 years? Rates adjusted.
Right? Yep. They did.
And not in our favor.
In the right direction.
Not in our favor.
Right.
So this deal, we started with a 6, actually it was 7. It was a bridge debt because the property in Clemson, South Carolina was in bad shape, had some vacancy, had some occupancy issues. So it was 73 units. I think $3.8 million is what we bought it for, with about $1 million CapEx budget, right? So figure $5 million is what we were going to be all in this property for, with closing costs, carrying costs, and everything. So first mistake was the loan, right? Somehow we missed. Actually, even if we'd known it, an adjustable rate mortgage, like, you know what? We're fine. Economy's good. What could go wrong, right? And we all know what happened. We all know what happened.
Right. Yeah.
So we closed this deal. The first contractor that we had on the deal blew through $100K of the CapEx just on labor in the first 60 days. Just wildly over budget on everything. So we brought in a new contractor, one that we had worked with before on other deals. Is like, hey, can you help us get this project right, get it back on track? But so we closed on the deal in August. This deal with investors, a 10% preferred return to the investors, their slice of equity in the deal. And the way we structure our deals, normally we pay preferred returns monthly. So if you invest $100,000, you're going to get $833 a month in cash, right? Because that's $10,000 a year. So we realized in December that the property could not support the pref payment anymore. And for the first time in our career so far, we had to call investors and say, Sierra, this is a tough phone call for me to make. The preferred payment has to stop right away to preserve the ratio cash. Like, that's a hard conversation to have. Very hard. And, my worst fears were getting yelled at, cussed at, but like all the investors like, hey, I get it. It's like, I know not everything goes right in real estate, and I appreciate you protecting my capital, right? An investor's primary concern is, if I give you $100K, am I getting my $100K back?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing they want to know. Not, hey, you said 20% and I'm only getting 18%. What the heck? Like, no. They're like, if I'm not getting back 100% of my capital, that's a problem.
Yes,
so
for sure.
We have the conversation with the investors. Almost all the investors like, you know what? I get it. Thank you for making this call. Thank you for making this swift decision to protect the project. And then the rates started going crazy, right?
Shoot.
And the cash flow got crimped and crimped and crimped and crimped until we realized in the summer, you know what? There is no way for us to get ahead of this curve, because by this point, the interest rate was 10%. We're paying 10% on this bridge debt. 2-year term, interest only. So we're not making any headway towards the principal. We're not amortizing any debt. The payment is only getting larger and larger. And, the property is just like, it was on the verge of sinking. It's like, we could not keep the property. So we made the hard decision, put the property on the market to sell it, even though we love Clemson. That's where Jennings went to school. That's where my brothers went to school. That's where our grandfather went to school. So put the property on the market, got it under contract. And then the seller, the buyer was like, hey, by the way, we want $600K off the purchase price in credit. And we're like, no can do. Not doing that. Because Jennings and I were looking at having to write checks for like $500K to make the investors whole from somewhere, or just making payments for the next 10 years so they could get 100% of their capital back. Yeah. So couple things. We made a mistake with the loan. We made a mistake with the contractor. And then the entire financial market shifted against us. And because there was no way to get the cash flow ahead of the debt service and the CapEx and the OpEx, the operational cost, we're like, you know what? We need to sell the property. So we sold the property, and I think the profit on the whole project was like $60,000 on a $5 million deal. So all the investors got all their cash back. Got out by the skin of our teeth, right?
Yeah.
But I realized it's like when that happened in real time, it was the worst Christmas I ever had, because I was I was so freaked out. Yeah. Dry heaving while my kids are opening Christmas presents because I'm in such turmoil that all the investors are going to hate me. I'm going to go bankrupt, become insolvent. Everything is terrible. And I thought, you know what? Am I glad it happened? No, not at all. It was very painful. I don't wish that on anybody. But at the same time, like, our investors are okay. The primary goal, protect the investors. Jennings and I worked for free for over a year. But we protected the investors, explained everything to them on Zoom calls along the way. Like, here's what's going on. Here's what we're doing to protect your investment. Here's what we're doing to get your capital back. No, we're not going to have the 18% returns like we planned. But you know what, Mr. Investor? If you'd put your money in the stock market, you'd only have 80,000 left of the 100,000. So let's think about big picture here, okay? And going through that sideways deal is like, you know what? Now I'm more careful. Now I pay more attention to things that I missed. And now that trickles down into the deal room. It's like, hey guys, watch out for these things, because they will bite you in the ass at the worst possible moment if you don't know about them. So like, am I glad it happened? No. Did we learn from it? And are we going to make those mistakes again? We learned from it, yes. And we're not going to make those mistakes again. Absolutely.
Now, how was the investors, what was their feedback? Were they kind of like, oh, I'll never invest with this guy again? Or were they like, I appreciate you, making us whole, and I would, do it again with you?
We have money from those investors that have gone into other deals already.
Perfect. So it's all about being honest.
There were some investors. Yeah, there were some investors like, you know what? This person was really upset when I talked with them on the phone. And I do not blame them at all for never talking with us again. Just deleting, unsubscribe from all my emails. I never want to hear from these jokers again. But that was a one-off. Almost all the feedback we got from investors like, Yeadon, Jennings, you guys did amazing with the cards that you had. Thank you for protecting my capital. Right? Because I remember being on the phone with one of my investors. He's like, Yeadon, we're just friends. We're just friends now. Am I going to get my $87,000 back? And I'm like, yes, you are going to get your money back. And it like, if the money didn't come out of the deal, then Jennings and I would have figured out a way. Like, how do we get this guy his $87,000 back? Because we could only get back half of it, and now we owe him $43,500. But we're going to figure out a way, whether it's equity in another deal, cash flow from other properties. Like, we will make the investors whole. And I say that not because we're awesome. It's like, that's the kind of person you need running a syndication, the kind of person that is committed to protecting the investors at all costs, to their own detriment. Like, I couldn't sleep.
Exactly.
But we was like, you know what? If we have to pay the investors $1,000 a month for the next decade, That's what we'll do to make sure they
Yeah.
get their money back. It's like whatever we can, they're going to be whole. And, the investors see that because they know investors only invest in a deal for two reasons. One, they understand and like the deal. Two, they trust the operator. And the second reason is way more important. Are you the kind of person that's going to do whatever it takes to get the investor their capital back? Or are you just going to be like, you know what? You win some, you lose some. Sorry, guys. On to the next one. Like, you can't have that mentality going into syndication. And that's one of the reasons why having partners and being in the room with people who have done it and experienced these things, it's so critical because when push comes to shove, you want to have teammates and you want to have people that have taken the emotional punches already, right? So now the next time a deal goes sideways, it's like, oh, I've been here before. Here's what we need to do right now, right?
Yep.
We're going to triage this situation, protect the investors. Some of them are going to be really upset, but we have to protect the investors. It's very painful phone calls, but I've done this before, guys. All right? We can do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. We definitely need to have people on our team that we can leverage their experience. So hopefully, none of us experience that. Thank you so much, Yeadon, for being on the show today. Where is the best place for people to find you if they want to learn more about you and get into the deal room?
So the best place to find us is online on Facebook. Our large group, My First Million in Multifamily. It's a great place to get started. We have weekly broadcasts in the group. There's a lot of activity. It's a great place to get started with a lot of content at no charge. And then when folks are ready to make a commitment to themselves to grow and really take action, we have the deal room. And a great place is getinthedealroom.com. It's real easy. Getinthedealroom.com. You can read a little bit about the deal room. There's an 18-minute video that we have up there on breaking down, how you can get a passive income from a single apartment deal. And you can schedule a consultation call with Jennings and me. Like, even if the deal room is not a good fit for you, maybe we can just like, hey, with where you are, this is your next step. Don't. Our program is not for everybody. But for the people that it makes sense for, our program gives results.
Perfect. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. If you guys enjoyed today's show, please write us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Every review helps us to reach more and more people looking to get involved in commercial real estate.
Sierra, thank you so much.
Today's show was sponsored by Synergy Capital Investments. To download your free multifamily investment guide for beginners or to schedule a call to learn about our upcoming investment projects, go to thrivewithsynergy.com. That's thrivewithsynergy.com or click on the link below.